have this Weighmax kitchen scale. I used it for a year or so, and now it doesn't power up at all. I have fresh batteries in there. Now it's a model wjusa, I believe is the model number. So rather than just throw this out, let's see if it's something simple. Let's take it apart. Now for starters, it's got some feet on it, rubber feet. You take those off. Underneath here, 4 Phillips, so I'll take out the 4 Phillips screws. Okay, we got the 4 Phillips screws out. Now at this point we'll have to slide the battery compartment out. Okay, looks like this top cover has to come off. Let's try it. Just turn it off. It just rotates and fits into some slots on here. Okay, now we can get at it. Okay, I'm putting the batteries back in. Sometimes when these things power down, oh, see, it just powered up. So when I put the batteries back in, it went into an auto power. What I'm suspicious of right now is this power on switch. Because that particular switch gets heavy use when this thing is in use. On and off, on and off, on and off. I used it in a dietary program where I was weighing foods constantly. Maybe a dozen times a day I've got this thing on and off. So I'm kind of suspicious that I wore that out. I'll take it apart further. There's a couple of tiny Phillips screws holding this down. So we will remove those. What these scales do now, they'll go into a automatic power down, and at that point I would expect that it won't power back up again. So one thing I want to do by way of troubleshooting this is check and see if the switch is getting power from the batteries. So 6 volts should be somewhere on this switch, or 3 volts. Well, when I just touched this and it came on, 3 volts right there. Okay, I'm suspicious of the switch. This convinces me enough. The switch is getting power. It's a momentary type switch. It just makes contact during the moment when you push it down, signaling a controller in there, a little microprocessor that it can power up. So we're going to find another switch. You can get these switches from stores like Radio Shack, or find it online at an electronic distributor. But I'm going to repurpose an old VCR here. This has a number of these type momentary contact switches in it. So I'm going to pull one out, put it in there. Okay, first of all, let's take the batteries back out since we're going to be working on it. You always, even though we're dealing with a few volts here, we want a dead circuit. The battery out, enter soldering iron. And we have some wick, desoldering braid, solder wick otherwise known. We'll use that to pull out the old solder with the soldering iron. And we'll solder, remove the switch. Okay, so we've got a little wet sponge here. You always want to put a little solder on your tip, steam clean it. And then the next step is to use your wick and take the old solder out off the old switch. Just holding the wick up against it when you have some flow. And the solder will get absorbed into the solder wick. It's a 4-contact, 4-point switch. So we have 4 of those to remove the solder on. Now sometimes, and this is the case here too, there's solder on the other side. You see there was a pad that held solder on this side as well, so that's got to come out. See how the solder was drawn into the wick. And then as it gets filled up, you should remove it. When you have them free, the pins free, they'll break loose from the pads. So this proved to be soldered in on both sides, which can make it a little bit more challenging to get out. But I managed to pull up on it as I was melting the solder in order to pull the last contact on the switch out. So now I'll just put another one in there. So we cleaned out the holes of all excess solder, and we can simply mount the new switch in there. Okay, I have a replacement switch in there. So now it's simply a matter of soldering it back in. Make sure it's pretty well level. It's level. Okay, we put our little micro screws back in that hold the circuit board. Back in business. On, off, on, off. Now we're just going to put it back together. Take some care when you're putting the cover back on. This is a load cell, the sensitive weighing device, and you don't want to put too much side force on these or you will damage them, even though this is an inexpensive kitchen scale. Still rather it worked when all is said and done. Let's see, I've got a pound of solder here. Now it's weighing in grams right now, 355 grams. Some of the solder's been used, of course, no longer weighs a pound. 355 grams is short of a pound. 454 would be a pound. Oh. Okay, that wasn't so hard. Let's put it back to use. Thanks for watching this video.